Okay, so question 4c, evaluate the sustainability of freshwater use. So sustainability, can we use it for, can we use it at a rate less than or equal so that future generations will be able to use it and the environment is unaffected. So this is really what we're coming back to with this freshwater use. And notice it says evaluate, so we're going to look at both sides of whether we can or cannot sustain the way that we're using the water in this particular case study. We also have to look at the environmental philosophies. So remember, as soon as we see the words philosophies or values or value systems, we're going to think about the ecocentric, anthropocentric, and technocentric. Okay, so what kinds of philosophies from an environmental perspective are being involved in the decision-making process for the management of this resource? Okay, so when we think about the case study, I'm going to take the case study of the Mekong. I know some of you did the Three Gorges Dam, but the Mekong was the one that we studied in class, and you learned a lot about it throughout the whole course. So the Mekong River, you've got a dam in the Mekong River, which is the Xayaburi, and this is in Laos. So the freshwater resource that's being used is the Mekong River, and it's being used to generate electricity. Okay, and you can compare this to the Mun River, because they also talk about this in the film. You might know something about it. And this is in Thailand, and it's also electricity. So how sustainable is it? Well, on the plus side, so we can sort of evaluate it, the positives. It's a sustainable resource, because if it's managed well, then you are producing hydroelectric power, which is not producing greenhouse gases. Okay, you're also, you have to build a reservoir, which could add value to the land in terms of providing fishing grounds. It could provide water for irrigation. And for wildlife. Okay, so that's if it's managed well, but where you're going to go into the negatives in a little bit more depth now is, you know that this dam hasn't been well managed, and you have environmental impact assessment that has been poorly conducted. And we know that you've got displacement of families. So where they were living sustainable or subsistence lives before, they're no longer living in that way. And you saw families who were discussing that they have to buy their food now, they have to pay for electricity, and in the past they didn't have electricity, so they didn't pay for it, and they grew their own food. So now they need money, they didn't have money before, and they don't have money. So that's not a sustainable situation. You've got the wildlife. So flooding these areas is going to displace many animals from their habitat, even though it might create a different kind of habitat. And you've also got, in terms of like the wildlife, these fish migrations, and you've got some good examples of endangered species like the giant catfish, which can no longer then migrate upstream because it can't get past the dams. And you also know about the fish ladders being poorly designed. And when you start talking about the fish ladders, you could link this back to the idea of hydroelectricity and wanting to produce electricity, and the solutions to the problems that the dam creates have actually all been technocentric solutions. So in terms of we want to have electricity to these villages, so this is a technocentric solution, and we want to have solutions now for the fish to migrate, so we have the fish ladders. So these are a technological approach to solving the problems, and for the decisions that have gone on, there's been very little in the way of ecocentric. There's been almost no consideration that the forest should stay as it is, or evaluating the value of the forest. I mean, you have the local people and the protests, and obviously they come from more of an anthropocentric or ecocentric. You know, some of them are wanting to protect the fish and the dolphins that are in the river, and would protest, and so these people were more ecocentric. And you have people who, you know, are complaining, and rightly so, that the displacement of their families is causing many problems. But these people have not been involved in the decision-making process. And so that's a way of bringing in another part of the evaluation. So the decision-makers have only really considered these technological approaches. So that we're going to generate power, and we're going to throw some money at it to try and make these fish ladders, but not really enough money. So overall, you'll want to come to a conclusion in all of this, but there's a lot that you can write about there. There's a lot that I've written here, and you can put that all together. So going back to the overall sustainability as well, you can also talk about the damming of the Mekong River for the downstream communities. And again, these people also have not been involved in the decision-making process. It's all been sort of technocentric. And you could even add something in there about the fact that some of it hasn't even come from an environmental philosophy. A lot of this has just purely been an economic mission with very little consideration for the environment.